right, welcome back, everybody. She is a former Republican presidential candidate who has taken the debate stage against former President Trump, but is now backing him. Joining us right now is former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. She's also the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and the current Walter P. Stern chair at the Hudson Institute. And Governor, Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be with all of you again.
It's great to see you, too. Okay, so I will ask the obligatory, okay, you said things about Donald Trump like he was too old, he was too unhinged, he was too angry to be president, and now you're supporting him. Why is that?
Because we've been given a choice. The choice is either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. And at the end of the day, I'm looking at the policies. I'm looking at the substance of it. You know, he cut taxes. She's raised taxes. He was strong on the border. She's been weak on the border. He was tougher on national security. She's been weaker on national security. I look at the cost of housing and groceries and my kids and what they have to go through. It's 19% increases. And so for me, it's not about whether you like a candidate or not. It's about what's the next 4 years going to be like. And I don't think we can have another 4 years like what we've already had.
Roger Altman was just here. He's he's a Democrat who was formerly the Deputy Treasury Secretary under President Clinton. He said that he looks at it, the reason he's supporting Kamala Harris, even though he doesn't agree with all of her policies, is that he thinks overall she's going to be working on behalf of middle-income Americans and lower-income Americans. That she'll be doing things to get at the prices you just talked about. Why do you think Donald Trump's policies would be better in those
I respectfully disagree. How can you say that when she's already talked about raising taxes, where she's talked about rolling back the tax cuts? When you look, she was the tie-breaking vote on the two biggest inflation drivers we've seen with the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act. So take her at her word, take her at what we've already seen her do, and know that you're going to have more of that. She's not getting in the weeds talking about it. But let's not be like the UK. What did we see happen in the UK? There was a lot of generalities that were said. The Labour Party wins, and now they're suddenly finding out exactly what they got.
She had said that she is not going to raise taxes on Americans making under $400,000. There are people who look at the tariffs that President Trump is proposing and say that that would be essentially a tax on middle-income families who'd have to pay for it.
I disagree with Trump on tariffs. I mean, tariffs are meant to be used as leverage. They're meant to be used strategically. If you do tariffs across the board, you're raising prices on farmers, on businesses, on consumers. It's never a good idea.
So the question I was going to ask you goes back to, and you were talking about temperament and all of this, but the idea, though, of, you said we saw what happened with Harris, right, or the Biden administration, and we also saw what happened to the Trump administration. And the question is, how, and I know you're talking about policies, you like Trump's policies, but you also have said disastrous things about not just his policies, but, I mean, not policy itself, but ultimately democracy in this country. I mean, you've talked about that and you've seen it. We've seen it with our own eyes. And so I'm just trying to understand how you sort of make that leap. For those voters out there who are listening to you, who may agree with you, who may disagree with you, what do you tell them?
That, look, if I thought either one was good, I wouldn't have run for office. I thought I could do a better job than what we have. But now that we're given this, we don't have perfect candidates, but we do have to figure out which one's going to work for us. I think about my kids. I saw how hard it was for my daughter to buy a home. My son is now looking for a job. He's worried about being able to afford rent. I see what my daughter's grocery bill is. I look at all of those things. And when you talk about taxing unrealized gains, when you talk about more stimulus packages.
The unrealized gains piece, by the way, which I don't agree with either, is not something that's going to impact most Americans. You agree with that?
No, I agree, but it's the mindset. If you're going in with that mindset, if you're going in with the mindset of we're going to take tax dollars from one group of people to pay off college loans for another group of people, it's that socialist mindset that's a problem. That's the concern I have is let's not forget she was one of the most progressive senators that we had. When she says my values haven't changed, take her at her word.
Governor, you at one point said, I don't know whether you regret saying it at this point, but I think it was something like if we leave Trump, the Republicans, and Biden and Democrats get rid of Biden, you are electing Kamala Harris by
I said a few things.
You say that all the time.
You think that's going to be the case, though?
I continue. You know, I said a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. I said that the party that gets rid of their 80-year-old candidate is going to be the party that's sitting in in the right seat. I said that there would be a female president of the United States. It would either be Kamala Harris
You
or
said
me.
this at a time when she was the most unpopular vice president in history, and no one in the mainstream media gave her a chance. Have you been surprised?
No.
At the way the mainstream media has embraced Vice President Harris and really rehabilitated her before our very eyes? It's been endearing. You got to admit.
It's remarkable
how
to
nice they've become.
Oh, it's remarkable to see that they basically took a candidate in 48 hours, revamped, and put her back out there.
Would they have no conscience? I mean, how does that work? It's just that important to stop the bad orange man, I think.
No one's voted for her. She's never done a debate before, and she's going into a presidential election. I mean, she has not been tested through those eyes, but she's earned it, right?
What do you think's
this is
gonna
where
happen?
she is. You know, I'm not one that is going to talk about intelligence or anything. You're smart to get to this point. She's gotten to this point. But if you look at it, don't suddenly act like she's someone different than we've seen. She is exactly who we've seen.
Couldn't everything you just said be said about your own comments about the former president?
I stand by everything that I said. I'm not disagreeing with you. This is not blind support for him. This is saying that when it comes to policies.
No, I understand that, but here we are saying that the entire universe has just completely switched on a dime about how they feel about Vice President Harris. And I'm saying you switched on a dime about how you feel about President Trump. You're saying you didn't switch on a dime.
No, that's not true. Everything that I've said about Trump, I'm standing by it. What I am saying is, look, we've been given two candidates. I'm a voter, too. I have to go and look at what do I want for my family? Where is safety? Look at the border. The national security perspective is chilling. You can't go and look at those things and not say safety is going to be an issue, economy is going to be an issue, energy is going to be an issue. Across the board, we need to look at what we've got. We can't afford 4 more years. Find me one American that says that they were better the last 4 years than the ones before it. You can't find it. So
I can tell you, most of the people who actually have any stock in this market would tell you that, actually. They would. And by the way, not enough Americans own stock in the market, but 44% of the Americans would.
Average Americans, if you ask them, they're just trying to make ends meet. And I saw it on the campaign trail. It's a big issue for them. And it's not just for them, it's for their kids. And so as a mom, that's what I look at. As the wife of a combat veteran, I look at national security. All of those things matter. If it were based on style, it would be different.
Governor,
but it's not based on style, it's based on substance.
The attack to the center, I mean, it's obvious we knew it was going to happen, but even her close associates, and she's co-sponsored bills with Bernie Sanders, so to the left of Bernie Sanders, they asked him point blank, is this really a change in how she feels, or is it becoming pragmatic to get elected and then back to the former? And he goes, oh, yeah.
And he said she's doing this to get elected.
He absolutely admitted. I don't know why Bernie sometimes has trouble just not getting on board with the, with the story that's being put out. But it's very clear that that's what this is.
You know, when I said that a vote for Joe Biden's a vote for Kamala Harris, and when I said mental competency test, that wasn't a joke. I was very serious about that. And because the writing was on the wall, I knew Joe Biden wouldn't make it through a presidential campaign. The writing is on the wall for me. Right. You are getting the same Kamala Harris that has always been there. She said herself, her values haven't changed.
Right.
We need to know that.
And she would have been the most liberal, probably, person in the Senate. Now, the question is, Pat Toomey, Dick Cheney, GW, they all have the same story. You know, I think Kamala Harris is an absolute nightmare, but I can't bring myself to. It's a vote for Kamala Harris. They can't find a scintilla of difference between. It's a binary choice. As a Republican, I guess you honor their decision.
I respect it. I think everybody comes.
But you're going to vote for Trump.
I'm thinking about my kids, the future of this next 4 years and what that means for America.
And it doesn't mean the end of democracy and a police state and a dictator on day one.
Look, we're in World War III right now. If you look at the fact that Russia has invaded Ukraine, you look at the fact that Hamas has invaded Israel, you look at China using aggression on Taiwan, you see the fentanyl flow across the border, you look at the opioid problem that we have, and I'm looking at the people responsible that started this trend. None of that would have happened had we not had the fall in Afghanistan. From a national security perspective, which y'all know I've always cared about that, The world sees
accepted
Harris as weak.
You've accepted vice president?
I don't talk about hypotheticals. That wasn't an issue. It wasn't something that came to me. I think that it's one of those things when you're given something, you
How did you get back together?
Have you had discussions to serve in a potential future?
I'm not interested in serving in Washington. That's
You
not.
do not. You do not. You're saying straight up that if he wins, if we're talking to you in February, you will not be part of this administration.
No, it's not why I ran. I didn't run to get a position. That's not. I ran because I
No,
really.
but I'm saying if asked to be, if he calls you up and says, I want you to be the Secretary of State,
No.
you're going to tell him no.
I have no interest in serving in
Oh,
Washington.
you might be Secretary of State.
I'm sorry?
You might be Secretary
No,
of State.
I have no interest. I have no interest.
You don't. We have an interest maybe in you being Secretary of State, the country perhaps. Maybe you would. I don't. I'm not sure. I take that at face value. Are you a surrogate right now, or have they asked you to be?
They haven't asked. But
would you be? You would be a surrogate for the campaign?
I'm a truth teller, so I'm going to tell you what I see as I
Either
see
way.
it. He knows that if he needs me, that he can ask me to do something and I'd be helpful, but they haven't asked. What I will tell you is this is going to be a very close election, and every step of it's going to matter. You know, you've got the debate coming up, but you've got that last 45 days, that's go time, and any one thing can throw it off. And what I have said to Donald Trump that I think is hugely important is go ask for the votes of suburban women, college-educated.
Personally, you said this
yes,
to him? You did.
When's the
Back
last time
in June.
So you talked
When's
to
the
him.
last time you talked to him?
Mid-June, I said, go ask for college-educated suburban women, independents, moderate Republicans, conservative Democrats. Ask them for a vote and tell them that you need them.
Was it a cordial conversation?
Yes, very. And it was one where I just said, I want you to know that based on this, I support you. I don't want to see, the Democrats win. We can't afford another 4 years. And I said, this is what I think you need to do.
Very quickly, we have to go, but tomorrow night is the debate. What will you be watching for? What would be something we could be watching for?
I think that Trump would be smart not to get personal, not to talk about personality, not to demean intelligence in any way, and talk about the policies. He wins when he talks about the policies. She's a prosecutor. I think he is a good debater. She's a prosecutor. I think she will do well. I think he will do well. Their goal is not to make any major mistakes.
Governor Haley, thank you.
Thank you. Great to be with you again.